Chapter 1. Patient Zero. The wind howled across the Alaskan tundra, like the cry of something ancient and dying. Snow lashed the reinforced glass of the Borealis outpost, a stark concrete structure half buried in the ice, crouched at the edge of the world. Floodlights cast jagged shadows across the glacier, flickering under the weight of the storm. Inside, it was warm, but not safe. Dr. Emily Heron hunched over a sterile steel table in the autopsy suite, her breath fogging the clear visor of her hazmat hood. Before her lay the body, a man-shaped slab of frozen meat, ice still clinging to the folds of his withered skin. His body had been discovered 2 days ago, buried 80 meters below the permafrost by a drilling team mapping seismic instability. No ID, no records, no facial match in any global database, no teeth, no fingerprints, just a face that seemed almost familiar, yet eerily wrong. He looked like everyone and no one. His features were symmetrical to an unnatural degree, skin smooth, taut over high cheekbones and a long, narrow jaw. Eyes closed, lashes black and frozen stiff, lips thin and barely parted, revealing not teeth but a seamless pink gum line, as if the concept of human anatomy had been guessed at by something that had never seen it. Emily had seen things rock, swell, and disintegrate in autopsy rooms before. But this was something else. Dr. Rafiq Halil, her colleague and the only other virologist stationed at Borealis, hovered near the environmental console, adjusting temperature controls. "Internal core sample is nearly thawed," he said. "Another degree and we can extract tissue." Emily nodded, her voice muffled by the hood. "We need to test for retroviral strains. If this is some ancient pathogen, it might have been dormant for millennia." Outside, the storm clawed at the world. Inside, the body breathed. Just once. The sensors chirped. Emily froze. She snapped her head toward the corpse, heart suddenly hammering. Rafiq stared, eyes wide. "Did you see that?" Check the vitals," she barked. There were none. No heartbeat, no neural activity, no brain function. The machines whispered back, silence. Then something cracked. A slow, wet sound, like a frost-covered melon splitting under pressure. From the center of the man's chest a fissure opened, not a wound, not a rupture, more like the ice had peeled back, revealing slick black tissue beneath. Veins shimmered like oily rivers, pulsing faintly. Emily leaned closer, the cold stink of ancient rot seeping into her nostrils even through the filters. "Get the containment chamber ready," she said. "I'm taking a biopsy." She reached in with a sterilized scalpel, pressing into the unnatural flesh, and the man's eyes snapped open. Milky, pupilless, yet somehow aware, they locked onto hers. Emily screamed, stumbling back. The lights in the autopsy room flickered. Static hissed from the intercom system. The corpse didn't move, but something moved inside it, bulging under the skin, like rats crawling beneath a tarp. The containment alarms wailed, bathing the room in red light. Too late. Over the next 6 hours, Borealis Outpost descended into chaos. The virus spread fast, far faster than any known pathogen. It didn't rely on saliva or blood. It seemed to move through feeling. The moment Dr. Halil touched Emily's shoulder to calm her, he convulsed, dropping to the floor in a seizure of empathy. "I feel everything," he wept, curled into a fetal position. "God help me, I can feel what you feel, your fear, your doubt, your dreams. I feel my mother dying. I feel my skin changing." His screams grew hoarse as his fingers clawed at his own face. Emily backed away slowly, unable to process the enormity of it. She slammed the door to the med lab, locking Halil inside. Through the reinforced glass, she watched as he writhed, his face shifting. Eyebrows smoothed, nose narrowing, lips contorting into the same terrifying symmetry as the frozen corpse. And when he finally looked up at her, his face was identical. By morning, the other staff were infected. Some cried, some smiled, some simply stood still, murmuring in languages they didn't know. Emily watched as one technician gouged out his eyes, laughing, whispering, "I see too much." She sealed herself in the cryosample chamber, clutching the one remaining vial of blood from the original body. She ran tests, sleepless, shaking, while outside, the infected moved in silence. They didn't try to break in. They didn't need to. They knew what she would do. They felt it. 3 days later, the storm broke. Sunlight spilled across the ice. Emily emerged slowly, eyes bloodshot, body weak. The station was quiet. No screams. No footsteps. Just rows of people, identical people, standing in the snow, their smooth faces turned toward the sun. They breathed as one. She staggered to the observation deck, hands trembling. And then she saw it. In the reflection of the thick observation glass, her own face stared back. Only, it wasn't hers. It was his, perfect, blank, impossibly serene. Her mouth opened, but no scream came. Only a whisper escaped. "Who am I?" Chapter 2. The Empathy Epidemic. The virus did not spread like fire. It spread like water, creeping, invisible, insidious, not through the air or blood, but through glances, touches, shared moments of emotion. It bloomed in the chest like a secret. Infected hearts became tuning forks for human feeling, vibrating with unbearable clarity. Empathy became a disease. The world didn't notice it at first. Then it screamed. It started in cities, places where emotions collided like particles in a collider. Subways packed with strangers, hospitals brimming with desperation, offices steeped in silent loathing. A woman broke down in a New York coffee shop after briefly locking eyes with a crying child. She wept for 6 hours, unable to stop. A news anchor in Tokyo collapsed mid-broadcast, whispering the thoughts of her cameraman, confessing his decades of hidden shame. Entire classrooms of students in Mumbai sobbed and hugged, screaming apologies for things they hadn't done. Within a week, airports became cathedrals of grief. By week 2, the changes began. The transformation was slow at first, barely perceptible. It started with the eyes. Iris pigment faded, as if emotion itself bleached it out. Blue eyes dulled to milky porcelain, browns turned amber, then glassy white. Then the skin changed, pores tightened, blemishes smoothed away. Faces became untroubled, symmetrical. Ears shrank, lips thinned, forehead stretched into the same perfect unblinking mask. And through it all, the whispering began. You could hear it anywhere the infected gathered. In parks, hospitals, churches, soft and synchronous, like a prayer in a dead tongue. No distinct words, just a tide of murmurs that scraped the edges of comprehension. It was always the same cadence, the same hum of harmony and loss. Some believed they were praying, others insisted it was the voice of the virus itself speaking through them. Governments collapsed faster than the public could react. Protocols failed because empathy overrode logic. Soldiers refused to fire. Doctors couldn't amputate limbs without feeling every slice. Parents felt the hunger of every orphan. No one could make hard choices anymore. Humanity fell apart with tears in its eyes. Some resisted, some ran, some hid. In an underground medical facility beneath the burned-out husk of Geneva, a woman walked alone through sterile corridors that reeked of antiseptic and despair. Dr. Mara Ellison, tall, gaunt, pale from months without sunlight. She wore no hazmat suit, no protective gear, just a lab coat soaked in dried blood at the cuffs and a pistol at her hip. Her eyes, still sharp with green, scanned the monitors that showed satellite feeds of cities in ruin. London, a writhing mass of wide-eyed, smiling people chanting in Trafalgar Square. Rio, churches filled with motionless congregants, all with identical faces, gazing at empty altars. Cairo, mothers rocking their dead children while softly humming that strange, ancient whisper. Mara didn't weep, couldn't. She was born without the ability to feel empathy. A rare congenital disorder, alexithymia they called it, emotional blindness. She had spent her entire life pretending to feel what others did, mimicking sorrow and joy to blend in. In another era, it had made her isolated. Now it made her immune. She studied the blood samples under a microscope. The infected cells pulsed with impossible awareness. Neural activity and lymphocytes. They felt her watching. They knew she was separate. Her fingers trembled over the microscope's fine focus knob. Suddenly the overhead speaker crackled. A voice. Calm. Familiar. Dr. Ellison, we know you're alone. Mara spun, drawing the pistol. The room was empty. You're not like us, but we can change that. She backed into a corner, heart thundering. We remember your mother's voice. She cried in the hospital, didn't she, when you didn't react to your sister's death? Mara's hand tightened on the gun. You're not real. We are more real than you. Then the whispering began through the walls. Not broadcast, not recorded. Coming from inside the facility. She activated the security feed. The main corridor camera flickered to life. The infected were already inside. Dozens of them, clones of the same face, moving silently, barefoot, their heads tilted as they listened to the memories of the building. Janitors, doctors, patients, every one of them now identical. One leaned against the wall, rubbing a bloodied palm across the concrete, whispering through tears. She lost her child here. He died during surgery. I feel his panic. Another caressed a wall sconce. Sat here for hours, holding his wedding ring. Alone, Mara's stomach twisted. They were devouring history, becoming it. She ran, sprinting through the corridor, each step echoing like thunder in the tomb-like quiet. They didn't chase her. They didn't have to. Wherever she went, they would already feel it, already know. She reached the cryostation wing and slammed the door shut, initiating lockdown. Behind her, a muffled voice spoke. Soft. Unsettling. You can't hide from understanding. That night, Mara sat in the dark, watching her reflection in a shard of broken glass. She studied her own face, angular, tired, untouched. Still hers. For now. But behind her eyes, something shifted. Not emotion. There's something worse. Recognition. Chapter 3. Faces of the Forgotten. Mara hadn't spoken in days. She traveled by night, moving through the skeletal remains of cities as the world decayed in eerie glacial silence. Civilization hadn't burned. It had hushed. The fall was not marked by gunfire or rebellion, but by a stillness that crawled across the earth like rot beneath the skin. No sirens, no alarms. Here's the murmuring. It filled the streets now. A soft, indistinct chant that rose from every alley, from cracked windows and shattered churches. It poured from mouths that no longer smiled but curved in a serene, mechanical hush. They gathered like pilgrims before televisions, computer monitors, broken smartphones, all broadcasting the same thing. Pure static. Not news, not images. Just gray noise, flickering and pulsing in irregular pattern. The infected sat, for hours, days, bathed in it, eyes unblinking, faces identical. Their mouths moved in unison. I see the father in the waves. I see the first face. I feel his dreaming. Mara moved silently through a crumbling department store in what was once Chicago. Mannequins were stripped bare and pushed against windows like offerings. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead. She passed walls plastered with torn flyers, missing persons mostly, each featuring smiling faces long since erased. They all had the same face now, and that face didn't belong to anyone the world had ever known. The dream started 2 nights ago. Mara didn't sleep much, but when she did, it was never deep. Yet something had changed. The virus wasn't in her blood, but it was in the air, in the land. She felt it in the pressure behind her eyes, in the sudden drop in temperature when she passed through heavily infected zones. And the dreams came anyway, each one the same. A man, standing alone in a gray field beneath a dead sun. Naked but featureless, no scars, no navel, no fingerprints. His skin shimmered like wet ash. He turned to her slowly each time, and she couldn't move, couldn't scream. He wore that face, the one everyone was becoming. But the worst part wasn't the man. It was the voice, not heard, but felt, pressing into her bones like a tuning fork of memory. You forgot me, but I remember you all. In an alley behind the rusted carcass of an old church, Mara found him. The boy, no older than 10, knees scraped, arms thin and bruised. He sat by a dumpster, shivering under a tattered My Little Pony blanket. His face was halfway through the change. His right eye had gone completely white, the skin on his cheek smooth as porcelain. But the left side was still his, freckled, human, scared. When Mara approached, he didn't run. He looked at her with a sadness too vast for any child. "You're not one of us," he said softly. "But you will be." She knelt, keeping her pistol close. "What's your name?" He blinked slowly. "They called me Liam." They. Past tense. She offered him water. He didn't drink. "I can see through their eyes," Liam whispered. "All of them, like glass windows. I saw my mom tearing her skin off in the bathtub while laughing. I saw my dad painting his face with blood, trying to match the dream. He wasn't good at it, so they took him." Who took him? The man. The one we all dream. He lives in the place before stories, before names. Mara felt a chill coil around her spine. "Is he real?" Liam nodded, tears slipping down the human side of his face. "He's not a man. He's the memory, the first one, the one we crawled from. What does he want? To be remembered." The boy's voice cracked. "We forgot him. That's why he's angry. That's why he's making us all look like him, so we'll never forget again." A distant sound echoed through the city, hundreds of voices whispering the same unintelligible prayer. It was coming closer. "I don't want to forget myself," Liam whimpered. Mara looked around. The alley was boxed in. The street ahead was starting to fill, identical bodies gliding through the fog, whispering in harmony. They turned their heads in unison. She pulled the boy to his feet. "We're leaving," she said. They ran through twisted alleys, past burned-out buses and graffiti scrawled in panic, "Stay out of dreams. Don't look. The face knows." Liam sobbed but kept pace. The further they fled from the infected, the louder their voices became. They weren't following with footsteps. They were following with feeling. Mara's mind stung with phantom grief, anger, terror. Memories that weren't hers crashing against her like tidal waves. A mother burying her baby in a shoebox. A soldier in Syria screaming into the sand. A girl hanging herself in a school bathroom. Liam collapsed outside a ruined train station, vomiting blood. "They're inside me now," he gasped. "They're almost finished." Mara looked at him, horrified. The boy's remaining human eyes stared up at her, pleading. "I don't want to forget my name." She raised her pistol. He nodded. The shot rang out once, echoing into the frost-covered ruins like a dirge. When the whispering finally stopped, Mara was alone again. Not really. Somewhere, deep beneath the earth, in a place older than time, something smiled. Chapter 4. The Hive Remembers. The cave breathed. It exhaled with every shift of stone, every tremor in the frozen earth. The air inside was warm, unnaturally so, and laced with the metallic tang of ancient blood. Dr. Mara Ellison descended alone, boots crunching over brittle fossils embedded in the limestone. Her flashlight flickered against walls slick with condensation and lichen, illuminating something that should not exist. She had followed the virus's path backward, across fallen nations and shattered minds, through databases and shattered labs, through fevered whispers passed down by half-chained survivors and the dying. All trails led here, to the root, to the beginning. This cave system near the site of Patient Zero's emergence had been overlooked by the initial researchers. The glacier above it had sealed it off for millennia, only revealed by the seismic disturbances caused by drilling. Something had shifted below. Something awakened. The deeper Mara went, the more the walls began to change. At first, she thought they were just mineral patterns. Then she saw the faces, carved into the stone in relief, thousands of them, worn by time but unmistakable, smooth, identical, featureless save for their symmetry. Mouths closed, eyes wide. Each face surrounded by others bowing, arms outstretched, their own visages more crude, chaotic, human. And worshippers. She passed mural after mural, etched into the subterranean cathedral. Primitive men kneeling before the face. Ancient women offering children, their own features warped mid-chain. Armies disbanding, villages silent, all drawn to him. The one who was before. Mara ran her fingers over the depictions, noting the continuity. Across every panel, every era, every culture, the central figure never changed. A perfect, faceless man, his skin smooth and mouthless, his presence serene and unbearable. She reached the deepest chamber, where the murals ceased and the walls turned to bone. Not rock, bone. Fused vertebrae. Skulls crushed together like mortar, rib cages twisted into spiraling columns. And at the center of this impossible tomb was a basin, no larger than a baptismal font, filled with something black and slow-moving. It pulsed gently, a heartbeat of viscous memory. The virus, pure, undiluted, alive. Mara stared at it. Her mind throbbed. Behind her eyes, memories not her own flickered like film, dying fires in clay huts, childbirth under stars, the first human screams. The virus didn't just infect, it remembered. Every host, every sorrow, every joy, it stored them in its endless neural lattice, preserving humanity by erasing what made them separate. The hive, a collective, no more loneliness, no more hate, no more wars, because there would be no more I, only we. Mara trembled. Her mouth was dry. She saw herself in the stone reflection of the basin, not her own face but his. It was subtle now, just beneath the skin. Her lips were thinner, her eyebrows softening. She had begun to change, despite her neurological immunity. The virus had found another path into her. Emotionless or not, she had felt too much. Too much death, too much suffering. It had slipped through the cracks of her mind, not as a contagion, but as compassion. A back door. She raised the thermite charges from her pack. They were enough to collapse the entire chamber. She had one chance, one pull, one spark. Her fingers hovered. Then came the voice, not in her ears, but in her chest, her stomach, her bones. "Time will destroy what you are. You are already part of us. Do you not ache to belong?" She clenched her jaw. "I won't be erased." But the voice didn't fight her. It welcomed her doubt. It smoothed her rage. And in that moment, she understood. The virus wasn't a parasite. It was an invitation. A return to the first memory. A time when consciousness had not yet divided into countless selves, when all that existed was a single awareness, humming in harmony, cradling the world in its dreaming. A memory of unity. Her finger trembled on the trigger. Tears welled in her eyes for the first time in years, not because she was afraid, but because she suddenly understood how small her singular life was compared to the endless song she could join, a symphony of thought, feeling, purpose. The basin pulsed. The hive waited. And Mara had to choose? Die alone, or disappear forever into the collective warmth. In the final moment, her face was unreadable. The chamber filled with light. Chapter 5. The Final Reflection. The sky above was a hollow dome of gray ash, sagging low at the weight of the world's silence. Cities no longer screamed. They didn't burn, or fall, or crumble. They simply stopped. Buildings stood like tombstones, untouched and undisturbed. No birds flew, no dogs barked, no wind moved through the skeletal trees. Earth had become a still, breathing monument to perfect calm. Mara stood alone at the heart of what was once Berlin. The toxin vibrated in her gloved hand, a vial the size of a child's thumb. It shimmered gold in the ashen light, softly glowing with a chemical promise, complete cellular disintegration of the neural patterning carried by the virus. A molecular guillotine. She had synthesized it beneath the Carpathians, deep in an old Soviet-era bunker where the infected couldn't feel her for weeks. It had taken everything: blood, fire, stolen machinery, and the last scraps of will she hadn't yet surrendered. The formula wasn't a cure. It was an extinction. Release meant the death of every infected human on the planet, 2/3 of Earth's population at least, gone, burned from the inside, nerves shredded, brains liquefied, bodies collapsed like puppets with cut strings. But if it wasn't used, soon she would be one of them. They were waiting for her now. Thousands stood in quiet circles around the square. Men, women, children, all the same face, all the same expression. Serene, timeless, a blank piece carved from wax. They made no sound. Their chests rose and fell in perfect synchrony. Their pupils reflected the same dream. Mara walked toward them. No one moved to stop her. Their eyes followed, but without judgment, without threat. It was worse than hostility. It was acceptance. They welcomed her as kin. "You are not alone anymore," said the voice within her, not heard but felt like a second heart. She stood at the fountain in the center of the square, long dried out, filled now with a sheet of stagnant water the color of old mercury. She leaned forward slowly, the toxin trembling in her fingers. A reflection stared back, but it wasn't hers. The cheekbones were too sharp. The mouth was thinner. The skin pulled tight with perfect symmetry. The eyes, blank, white, infinite. She blinked, and so did the reflection. But there was a delay, a hesitation, as if it were waiting for her. Behind her, A voice spoke, not with sound, but with feeling. You have suffered too long. We can carry your burden. Another whisper rose. There is no more war here, no sorrow, no loneliness. A third. Why remain a jagged shard when you can become whole? The vial felt heavy in her palm. Her knees buckled, but she didn't fall. Hands, too many to count, reached out from the crowd. They didn't pull her down. They supported her. They held her with reverence. Like she mattered. Like she belonged. Like they loved her. Mara sobbed. Not from fear. From exhaustion. For the first time, the idea of letting go didn't feel like defeat. It felt like peace. To dissolve into something greater. To be remembered, not as herself, but as part of everything. She looked down again. The reflections smiled. So did she. Then, her fingers opened. The vial slipped from her hand, falling in slow motion toward the cracked stone beneath her feet. The drones watched, heads tilted in silent wonder. And in that final instant before impact, the world held its breath.